It's a project that we've been talking about addressing here for the last year or two. So I think we're finally ready to start working. And so we're going to kick that off with the training. But for now, I'll let Victoria take over and start the commissioner training for you guys.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jess. As she said, my name is Victoria. I am with the Minnesota Valley Council of Government. Try to say that 5 times really fast. I essentially, what I do is I assist cities with any situations that they may have, whether it be, personnel issues or planning and zoning, which is why I'm here today. Our program exists to assist cities like yourselves, essentially to just help you with whatever big projects you guys have going on and just need additional, maybe review or guidance on. So tonight we're going to go over just some of the basic information about being on a planning commission. So I talk a lot and I'll probably talk a little fast. I'm going to really try to slow down, but I want to get you guys out of here at a good time. So feel free to cut me off or raise your hand or whatever. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, we're going to cover a wide range of topics tonight, such as why does the city plan? We're going to talk about some common structures, basic controls that you guys have, subdivisions and zoning, what a comprehensive plan is. I know you guys, like Jess said, that you guys had some copies in front of you and you're like, what the heck is this? Why is this in front of me? And why do I need to know it? We're going to touch on that briefly on this training, and then we'll go a little bit more in depth on the second, as well as some resources on parliamentary procedures, which is the Robert's Rules of Order. Okay, so why train the local government officials? Well, planning and zoning has its own language and methodology, and if you have not been on a planning commission or any type of committee for that, it can be kind of confusing walking into it. How many of you guys are new? I've seen a couple of your guys' faces. I'm like, most of you look familiar. It's just you two. Okay, sounds great. Not to single you out. This is awesome. I'm sure it's a great touch up for others that have been involved for some time. So it's exciting to have you guys be a part of this. And I'm sure that your city is grateful for you guys wanting to step up and, learn a little bit more about this. So anyways, so we just want to make sure you guys have a general understanding on planning and zoning, how you go about making decisions and how do you go about making recommendations for the council going forward. Additionally, it's important that you get familiar with some of the legal principles behind planning and zoning, and just to have a general understanding. Got some beat music back in the background. There we go. Understanding of your city ordinances. Just so that way, if something is ever questioned or, you have your citizens who I'm sure enjoy giving you some feedback, whether it be colorful or not, it'd be good for you to understand where you guys are coming from and how you make those decisions. And then lastly, just getting familiar with, making motions. What does that process look like? I know you went through and you called the meeting to order. There's kind of like the agenda is already preset, and then at that point it's going through and saying, like, do we agree with what we have set for today? If anybody wants to add something, that would be the time to then amend that agenda. So again, we'll go in that a little bit more deeper, just so that way you have the language and knowledge going forward in your future meetings. Okay, so why do we plan? Of course, there are some statutes that are listed as to why we go about that. We want to be knowledgeable and understanding that, hey, we want to promote public health, safety, in the general welfare. And what exactly does that mean? I have the privilege of serving as the planning and zoning administrator for a couple of townships that surround the city of Mankato. And I get asked this question a lot as to, you can't tell me what to do. It's my land and I own it, right? But I bet that they would not appreciate if their neighbor went and put a 60-foot height building. They no longer can see their sunset. It's a loud industrial building. And now they're super upset because why? Because, well, we didn't, make sure that we had the public health, safety, and general welfare in mind. So I like to always utilize that as an example because, of course, they live out in the country and they want to have their beautiful view of the sunset. So, as well. So planning can also help avoid extra expenses of building new infrastructure in areas outside of urban zones when the infrastructure already is in town and is underused. So the reason why we're trying to plan right now is because I'm sure that there are probably some buildings that are located in your downtown district that may not be currently utilized or occupied. And so a great way to utilize your comprehensive plan and any businesses that may be looking into opening up in your town is to make sure, one, that if you do have available spots, does your zoning district and does your ordinances allow them to utilize and expand what your current structures are located down in your business district or in your downtown area. Okay. Okay, so there is a thing that's called a 60-day rule. We're going to go over that a little bit more, but essentially what this means is by the time that somebody applies for, we'll say, a conditional use permit, we have 60 days from the day that they apply and pay for it, so it's considered a complete application, to give them a response, whether that be a denial, approval, or to, basically just to make a decision for them on what they are inquiring. There is state statutes that list out, which is 15.99, that states you are required as the planning commission and as the council to give this applicant an answer. We can't just say, well, we're waiting for more information on X, Y, and Z. And if that's the case, then we write a letter and let the applicant know that we are extending that 60 days, okay? That's just really going. Okay. In the process of receiving an application, in your reports, Jess, you do the reports?
Usually Michael does.
Michael, you have the pleasure of typing up a report. Wonderful. So you'll see that he'll list out some findings of facts. What that means is that the applicant may be requesting to, I'll just use an example here. We just recently had an application for a conditional use permit to basically build like a little garden / greenhouse out on their property. That's considered a conditional use. So in that process, Michael would then write up some findings of saying, hey, this is how this aligns with what our code says for this zoning district, okay? And with that, as your guys' job as planning commission is to make sure, and council, that yes, although Michael did make those findings, do we agree with that? Do we see that those align with what our code says, what the purpose and intent behind that zoning district is, as well as our comprehensive plan and land use plan, okay? These findings, they must have adequate factual and legal reasons behind the decision to support the decision in the event that the action is legally challenged. So somebody comes in and says, hey, I saw you guys allowed for a greenhouse in that area and I don't think that that's right. Well, then we can go back and say, what were our findings, and be able to utilize that to combat.
I have a question. You want to touch a little bit about conditions once you have the findings, or is that later in the?
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
touch on a lot more. You guys also have the pleasure, because I just recently went through some really sticky situations within the township, because you're gonna hear some of my stories on that. So this is safe space. What's what happens, talks about in here, stays in here. No, I'm totally kidding. You guys can definitely utilize that in the back of your mind when you're making decisions of like, those are things we want to avoid and not do. Or, hey, that was a good idea and maybe we'll pursue that. So, all right. So what is the Planning Commission's role in city government? Your role is to advise the elected officials. So again, I'm just going to use Michael as an example. So when he went through and said, hey, we're writing to approve for this conditional use permit for a greenhouse located in the agricultural district. And in that recommendation, you guys are going to review the report, the findings, and any recommendations that are listed therein. In that report, you'll align it to what your code says. You'll align it to what the comprehensive plan states and your land use plan. I know those are three major documents that are really resourceful to a city. It's kind of like a go-to as far as like, are we allowed to do this or not? How does this greenhouse affect our future development? Do we want to build houses in that area? And if so, is that in 10 or 20 years, are we going to do that? And will that affect that? It's kind of making sure that you're thinking about those long-term planning and not just short-term. Okay. And so anyways, going back, planning commission's role is to make sure, hey, is this request going to align with what our future planning is or not within the city? So, and then additionally, the elected officials make the final decision. So your council is the one, you're making recommendation to them. And then your council is the one who says, final approval, yep, we agree. Or, hey, nope, we need to take a step back. Thank you for your recommendation. This is what we're going to decide to do. Okay, so council gets a final say. But although they get the final say, your job is still very important. You are kind of like the second step in defense, I would say, as far as making sure that whatever the request may be, that it aligns with what your code says. Okay. And then this is just explaining what the role of the Planning Commission is, as I have previously stated. This is just simply quoting what statute states as far as what that may look like. I know you guys are a charter as well. And so I just want to point out that because you want to also include that. So as long with your comprehensive plan, land use plan, and your ordinance, you want to make sure that also aligns with what your charter says if there's anything different, okay? So be aware of those documents as you're reviewing any type of request.
All of ours are online. So our code, our charter, our zoning ordinance, our comprehensive plan, all of it is online.
That's great. It's accessible. So, you know, if you have a request sent in and you're sitting down watching the game playing, maybe you can roll that up and read through it while you're watching, hopefully, the Vikings win, if anybody is a Vikings fan in here. All right. So, cool. Yeah. Depends on the year, huh?
It's hard to beat.
Okay, so a city with a zoning ordinance must have a board of adjustments or appeals. What is this? Simply, they just hear and decide so if a variance is denied, this is the board that's going to listen and hear whether they should either get that approved or not. Again, it's just making sure that there's establishment of legal nonconformity, right? So like if somebody were to have a grandfathered in building, you know, that there aren't other people that are coming in and saying, well, they got to have a 20-foot building, why can't I? And your code says, well, can only have 15 feet, right? Maybe you guys updated that because you realize that 20 feet is too high. It could be a safety issue and whatnot. So, okay. So, and then this board of adjustments is the city council. So they make the final decision again.
So ours, the appeal is here and then goes back to council.
The appeals is the council. So that
Okay,
is the
I
like
can't remember
final
if
decision.
Ours
and
is
say,
the council, is the board. Okay.
Yep. Okay, and then the role of a staff, again, as I previously stated, Michael would be considered your staff as well. He's the one who's going to take in those applications, make sure that they're complete so that he can actually type up a report, right? What are those setbacks? You know, are there any environmentally sensitive areas that we can take into consideration for this review? He's the one who's going to be collecting all of that information to be able to type up some type of report to present before you. Okay, they're the ones who are interacting with the applicant and making sure, again, that they have all of the criteria of what's considered a complete application, and then also reaching out to say, hey, upon further, you know, recommendation of the planning commission, here are some additional items we're going to need to see before council meeting. Okay. Okay, so this is just kind of my cautionary, you are the city here. What you say matters. How you say something, it matters. This includes when you're in a meeting and when you are not. So what I mean by that is you got a buddy named Bill and he wants to build his 20-foot shop. And you're like, well, the code says 15, but maybe I could work it out for you a little bit. Like, no, absolutely not. Like, we're not making false promises to people. Like, your job, as I previously stated at the beginning, is to ensure that whatever you are approving, whatever you're reviewing, it's going to align with your code and your charter and your land use plan and your comprehensive plan. So don't make sure that you're not making any false promises. I have nieces and nephews where I'm like, I'll take you to the dollar store when I get there. And if I do not hold my word, they will remember it. So if you make those false promises while you're at the bar, they're going to remember that. So I would just recommend just keeping your lives separate from this position. I know it can be kind of hard because it does get a little messy, but just making sure that you're not making false promises to people of the public, whether it be your best friend or an acquaintance. Okay, so we're going to go over official controls and general zoning. So what is zoning? Zoning ordinance will include both a map and text. These documents set the standards for zoning districts. So as I previously said in my example, an agricultural zoning district is an example. Do you guys have an ag zoning district? Yeah. You do? Okay, cool. Probably have residential, commercial, business. And so with that being said, these are kind of like your categories as to what can you do within those specific zoning areas. It regulates the way in which landowners can use their property, as I said. It also helps develop land use patterns and best uses of specific areas. So cities do not approve projects, they approve specific land uses. So it's not, I don't want a McDonald's there, it's a business and does it belong in that zoning district is what we're discussing, okay? Some of those things, I'm sorry, I got messed up. Okay, so a decision-making body cannot use vague and speculative opinions and unsubstantiated concerns from citizens as a basis for a decision. They'll need to go back to the findings of facts and lens. So again, it's going back and seeing how does this align? And I know I'm going to sound like a parrot with saying that over and over again, but your comp plan and your ordinance are like your Bibles when it comes to reviewing any type of item. Always want to go back to that source and make sure, can we find a finding of fact here or not? Okay, so some of the things within general zoning that you'll find is within your code, you'll talk about density, lighting, noise, building placements. Just recently, we had a building that was built after the fact. So they just built it, didn't ask for permission, and then had to come back and ask for forgiveness and approval. But that one's very complex, and I'll talk about that more. But it was an after the fact variance. And so with that, how do we determine that? Well, one, did it meet the setbacks as I previously stated? Well, in my case, no, it did not. And then did it meet the, which is considered yard regulations or requirements? Is the lot size itself, so the lot may be an acre and you can't cover more than 25%, which would be the ground coverage. And so if that building covers more than that, then it'd be considered a nonconformity. So those are just some ideas of the general zoning controls that you may find in your code or ordinance. All right, and then these are just some examples from the city of Mankato that I pulled, but it sounds like you guys have majority of these as well.
Yeah, very similar.
Okay.
It's B1 and B2 is about the only difference.
Okay, instead of central.
And we have an R3.
Oh,
Dang, you guys got an R3 over
Yeah.
here. Wow. All right. Very cool. So just get familiar with that. Go to the code, and then also there should be a zoning map that will tell you that. It'll look really colorful and beautiful, just like that one right back there.
Yes.
You'll be able to see there's a legend there, and it'll kind of help describe exactly what are each area zoned as. Okay, there are other types of zoning as well that is called a planned unit development. It allows for some flexibility in your ordinance as they are providing a public benefit. I won't go too much into this essentially, but it's just planned unit developments are your ability to have some flexibility with what your code currently states. And then as long as they're a benefit to the general welfare, you kind of move around and see what opportunities the applicant may have because they have a planned unit development. All right, there's 3 categories of use. Permitted, it'll say, yep, you're allowed to have a house in an R1 district. Conditional use may be a greenhouse within your backyard or maybe a swimming pool in the R1 district. And an accessory use would be a pool house shed in your R1 district. So again, these are where, yes, it's permitted. It is simply a construction permit and approved, done and over with. Conditional use is, yes, you can have a swimming pool in your backyard. However, how big is it? Are covers required? Are fences required around it? There's all lots of little bit more stipulation around. Yes, it's approved, but we're going to add some conditions to your approval, hence the name. And then accessory is very similar to permitted use. Your pool shed to put all your equipment away when summer is over. That is simply a construction permit, and we're going to make sure that it's allowed within the R1 district. All right, now we're going to get a little more into what a conditional use permit is. As I previously stated, it is an allowed use, but there's going to be some conditions that are added to it. Conditions must be reasonable and practical. I can't be like, I don't like my neighbor Bob and I don't want to hear him swimming at 10 p.m. So you know what? He can only swim from 8 to 9. Like, we can't do stuff like that, right? It stays with the land and not the property owner. So if there was ever a sale, the swimming pool is still allowed to stay there. We're not going to require someone to rip that out. And it does require a public hearing, which means that this is now going through the formal request process, which is that legal notices will have to be sent out. So you may utilize your newspaper or city website, Facebook. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, we do direct mailings too.
Oh, okay.
So
Just mailers. Yep. So you're notifying the neighbors within a certain vicinity of the swimming pool that we want to put in, for example. And then additionally Michael will type up a report. And then you would then present that at your planning commission meeting, which is where now you get to have fun and review it as well and see how it aligns, or if you think that there should be additional conditions that Michael has already provided based on, again, that comp plan and your ordinances.
So you were saying that with that guy swimming, yeah, I understand that, but let's say if we had someone in an industrial zone that was working at odd hours, could we put conditions on the hours they can work?
Absolutely. And that's a perfect example to that, because if there is an industrial district that abuts a residential district, right, we don't want them working all hours of the night, and the public will be very upset if you allow that. So I think it would be reasonable to say 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., right? Like, where is that cutoff line? Right. So that is definitely a reasonable condition.
Just making sure.
Yeah, that's a great question.
If so, in that same scenario, if there's a business that has those conditions, how do I really put this, and they don't perfectly follow those conditions, can the board then come back and make it more restrictive or more strict, or do they have to stick to the conditions that have already been placed?
So yes and no. Number one, I do want to say I am not a lawyer, so I'll just put that out there. That may be a question to ask and seek out for legal advice on how do we go about this violation, essentially. Because if you said, hey, you can have your business from 8 to 5 and every day they're working like 7 to 7 and now they're kind of moving it around, and what that is they need to come back and amend their conditional use permit to request. The applicant will then need to come back and say, hey, we realize 8 to 5 is not really working for us. Is there any way we can get flexibility and go 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.? Of course, we all wish that in a perfect world, that's how it would work. That's not always how it goes. People get really upset. This is my business. You can't tell me what I can and can't do. And that's when I would get legal counsel involved. Okay. All right. Great questions. Okay, a city can revoke a conditional use permit if there is not substantial compliance, as we were previously stating. So you guys can say, hey, we gave you conditions and you are not abiding by that, so we are going to revoke that and you'll need to come back and reapply. Again, I would definitely recommend that you seek out legal counsel through that process, just to make sure that you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's through that process. All right, variance is my favorite. So, what is a variance? A variance is an exception to the rule. So, these can get a little tricky. They can be complex, and they can be a little time consuming, not only for your staff, but for you guys as well. Because when you come to the table for a variance, my wish and hope for all of you is that you do your research, that you understand, number one, what is the request? And number two, does this or does it not align with what our future development goals are, what our current code states, what our charter says? We want to make sure that if we are going to approve a variance, that it's not because it's our best friend and we want the best for them, but that it truly aligns with what our code says. Okay. So like a cup, once the variance is approved, it does stay with the land and not the landowner. A variance allows for an exception to a portion of the zoning ordinance. So I recently had, an after the fact variance permit, a variance request for a already placed structure. What ended up happening is there was a property line on the south end. He ended up placing his structure skewed, which caused him not to meet that side yard setback. Now it was already placed, so that is an after the fact. He did request a construction permit prior, and we did approve that. And in his construction permit, he did say he was going to meet the setback. However, through him applying a second time, we did require a surveyor to come in, and it was proven that he did not end up meeting that side yard setback. So he came back and said, hey, can I have an exception to the rule? It's not my fault. I didn't realize that I didn't line it up correctly. And it was not granted, but he did come in and he did ask, and we're going to talk a little bit more as to why was it not approved. So in order for you to be able to approve a variance, you have to make findings, and in those findings, some of it is going to be about practical difficulty. Okay. When an applicant establishes practical difficulties, you have to make sure that does it align, and what a practical difficulty is. Essentially, is there an undue hardship on the property or on the property owner? Per se, we can talk about, wetlands or where there are ravines or located nearby. And that's why he placed it at a skewed angle and moved it. This applicant did, and he had open ag land. I don't know why he placed it so close, but he did. And so those are some things that we would consider in a variance is, hey, he didn't mean to do that. He just realized that there was a ravine there, and he wanted to make sure he was going to be able to have access to his front door. So he placed it at a non-90-degree angle.
So what happens if the construction company messes up without him knowing, and on the other side, he's at work, comes home and goes, uh-oh, this isn't good.
That's why you always have your contractor sign your permit application, because then they are the ones liable for making the changes. So they have to pay for redoing it. If you sign the permit, you are assuming liability.
Okay.
And again, I'm not a lawyer, but that's just what we recommend to our applicants is if we're hiring a contractor, have them apply for the permit.
In that case, they come and ask for a variance because they.
The contractor is the applicant on behalf of the property owner who is making that request, right? Yep.
Okay.
And if you guys are looking for more detail as far as like what is the practical difficulty or undue hardship, the League of Minnesota Cities is a great resource. If you go to their website, let's see here, I kind of wanted to show you guys it just so that way.
There's a cheat sheet somewhere with the 5 questions that you need to pass, and I think we have it somewhere, so we can maybe send that out, and there's just 5 questions, and if you can justify those 5 questions, you can argue that you have a practical difficulty.
I was going to show you, but I'm not connected to the Wi-Fi anymore for some reason.
We've been having Nuvera's having issues today.
Okay. But on there, though, it will walk through the scenario of I'm going to place my structures too close to my property line, and they'll walk you all the way through on Is there a practical difficulty? In that guy's case, no, there wasn't. He just misplaced it, and there's no legal standing as to why we can say, hey, we want to approve this. Super nice guy, was really sweet to work with, but I can't give you a variance just because you're a nice guy. Unfortunately, you misplaced it, and so the only option that he had at the end was to chop off 7 feet of his building, which was a house, so like a shed house. I've never heard of that before, so cool, very cool for you. But then he was like, well, now my living room and my toilet's going to be gone, and that's a problem. So, anyways, but that we can't also grant
How did
variances.
that one turn out? Did he have to?
Oh gosh. Okay, so we denied it. But then he went through and he actually owns the other side of land that's located in a different township. So yeah, and it's located in a separate township. So now we're crossing jurisdiction lines as well. So we got Blue Earth County involved because they oversee the planning and zoning for that other jurisdiction, and they were able to make him happy and cut a little section out, which just aggravates my type A personality of like, it's not a straight line and there's a little chunk that's cut out just for this guy so that he can meet his, 50-foot setback or whatever it was. So
That's really good material for your training.
oh, it really is. Some of these I'm like, gosh, I don't want to go through this. Why can't it ever be simple? I'm like, what a great opportunity to share that at a training. All right, sorry guys, let me just catch up to my slides here. All right, this is the pyramid of discretion. Essentially, off to your left, those are the general categories of where you can create. So you can create your comprehensive plan, you can create zoning and subdivision ordinances. Then there's a section where you apply. So you apply your code to variance requests, conditional use permits, subdivision applications, and then you administrate plan reviews. So you're administering building permits. And then off to the right, least, some, and most, that's the control that you have over these areas. So you can create and have the most control over your comprehensive plan, which would then dictate all of the following all the way up to the top. Your plan reviews are dictated by that comprehensive plan and your subdivision ordinances. So if you see something coming through and you're like, I really don't want to see that come through again because X, Y, and Z, well, then maybe we should go back through and amend our comprehensive plan to reflect what we want our future city to look like. Okay. And a lot of the reason why I put this in here is because majority of the time that we see this come into play is when there's a grandfathered in item where people are like, well, that's not fair. Why does he get the 20-foot building and I don't? And I wanted to put, my kid's playroom up in that 20-foot area. Now I can't. And so we kind of see that. And why does he get to do that? And why can't I? Well, unfortunately, the code was amended back in 2015 and we're in 2025. And that's not how we approach buildings anymore. So. All right, legal and non-legal nonconformities. So a legal nonconformity is, hey, this person got the permit back then. The zoning requirements allowed him to do that, and therefore he can have that 20-foot shed. And then, of course, an illegal nonconformity would be, hey, he built that anyways, didn't care, which is one I just dealt with literally last night, where he said, I do not care, I'm going to build it anyways. And he requested for after the fact variance and it was denied. So I would recommend if there's somebody who comes in here and says that, say it usually does not turn out for them. So speaking from experience, I'm sure you guys can too. Those who have been on the board or council for a while have probably come across some of those situations. So again, that is just, this slide is just simply stating what is allowed and what is not allowed, and then what was essentially grandfathered in and not. All right, subdivisions. These are your preliminary and final plots. Do you guys do those two requests at the same time, or are they separate?
Separate.
They're usually separate.
Only really stumbled through one.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
my last stance.
It was separate. There was a lot
Separate, yeah.
that had to be changed, and the engineers had a lot of suggestions for the preliminary one, so they had to come back and then do the final one. So
Okay, would you
Yeah.
guys mind like sharing a little bit about that? Like with,
it was like 2 years ago now.
Oh,
Or
it's
That
2
something.
years.
was with, the Patel development, because I think they had done the preliminary plat actually prior to Michael and I, and then substantially changed the plan.
okay.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and the engineers had, I don't remember, but they just had a lot of suggestions, and he was dealing with wetlands, and so I don't know. There's just a lot going into it, and so he had to
those-
continually update his
It's so
plans over
complex.
months.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of parts that go into it.
Yep. And so, like what you guys were saying, those are those environmentally sensitive areas, which are those wetlands, for example. Engineering, they are going to come back and say, hey, this doesn't seem to work, or hey, there's not a right amount of parking for this development if it was commercial. And so what these subdivisions essentially are is, hey, we're going to break apart an acre and we want to build 6 houses within that acre, or we want to build apartment complex. So we need to subdivide 40 acres out and whatnot. So again, as these two have already stated, Michael and Jess, about, you know, just the complexity that's behind that. And I'm glad that you guys do them separately, just because it gives you enough time to say, hey, we've initially reviewed what you guys are proposing to do, and here are some of the changes that we would like to see before that comes back for final approval. All right, public hearing process. So public hearing is required for preliminary plats, but they're actually not required for final plats. However, I would recommend that you have a public hearing for both of them, just because, like they've said, there can be many changes from the preliminary to the final, and it gives the public the opportunity to have some input on if those changes would affect the surrounding areas. These are just some categories to consider with that subdivision: your lot size, density, does it align with what your code says? Frontage, access. So if we're subdividing some, you know, acreage, do they even have access to a public right of way? Or are they just trying to chop it out and then rent it out so that the next farmer can, you know, farm on it? But does that align with what your guys' code says? Are all lots required to have access or not? Majority of the codes that I have worked with, they do require, so that's just something that we have to consider. Street patterns and width, even though they do have access to right of way, is the width of that access, does it align with what your code says? As well as, you know, landscaping, are there utility easements? Do they have access to utilities or not? Those are just some considerations when you're doing those preliminary and final, to make sure that each of whatever those subdivided lots, they all have access to utility lines to have electricity and water and sewer. Okay, so amendments. This is discussing more about your zoning ordinance, the text or the map. If you say, hey, we're looking at that beautiful, colorful map back there by, oh, I don't see your name tag. What was your name? Brandon, right behind Brandon. You guys have your land use map there that identifies the different zoning districts. Maybe there's a new contractor that's coming around and wants to build a bunch of houses out in, I don't know what the green is, but, and so now we want to make that more accessible to whatever the purple area is. I'm sorry, I don't know you guys' map very well.
Purple is, yeah, industrial.
Industrial. Okay,
I2,
so maybe we
green
want to
is
review
ag.
that. Hey, maybe it's better that we start pushing city limits more out north. So maybe we want to review and amend that. What does the process look like? We're going to discuss that here soon. That's also going to go and bleed into your comprehensive plan. So why do we want to extend north of the city? What is there that's going on that, you know, is there a new rail line that's coming through, a little, you know, from the cities where people would want to come in and to your town? So maybe we do want to start extending north. So those are just some considerations that when it comes to amendments, it does have to still be practical and logical. You can't just say, well, I'm going to buy a house out there, so I want to start extending residential up there. Nope, we're not doing that. And then who can initiate that? Well, that's you guys. Planning Commission can make that recommendation to council. Property owners, again, bought a land, wish that it was, zoned closer to residential. Maybe I can go in and request that. Again, the property owners are requesting to Planning Commission is how that request goes. And then the Planning Commission will then make a recommendation to council, and council will have the final say. Yes, we want to do that. No, we do not want to do that. Okay, so also rezoning. So when a property is being annexed into the city, for example, there is a potential for a kind of in-between zoning. Do you guys have transition?
We don't, but we have just recently rezoned some areas.
Okay.
But no transition.
What does the process look like for you guys
It
to
comes
rezone?
to here first, just like you said,
Mhm.
either this board can initiate it or the property owner comes here for review, and then we would make the recommendation to council.
After a public hearing.
Yeah.
Exactly that. So, if I want to rezone from, if they're having a party, I really want to go over there and dance with them. I don't know what they're doing, but that sounds great.
Yeah, it's gonna be louder tomorrow.
Really? What is it?
What's it called?
Legends of the Opry.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a concert fundraiser.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. As you can see, I'm easily distracted. I apologize. So these rezoning requests is more or less just, hey, my property is zoned industrial, but I had a house on this property forever, and now I want to build a shop, but I can't build a shop because it's zoned industrial, and I have to meet the industrial requirements. That was in one of my townships. And so we were able to rezone. The code provided a pathway for this individual. And so we were able to rezone. If your code does not provide that pathway, then it is a no. It does not go before here unless you really want to, but I would say that would open you up to some legal risk for you to push that through, even though there is no legal pathway according to your code. Okay? All right, guys, we're almost done. Thanks for hanging in. So, comprehensive plan. We're going to talk a lot more about this in depth, so I'm just going to be very basic here. This is essentially your vision for your city, for future planning. What's your strategy? What are your goals? What would you like your city to look like? I've been a part of some comprehensive planning where the last time it was updated was in the 80s, and this town looks very different from the 80s. And so it kind of held them up on, allowing future developments to come in, or even just like commercial businesses like Dollar General. We see lots of those in the smaller jurisdictions, but it is a great opportunity for smaller towns instead of having to drive an hour to a grocery store, 30 minutes. Nice to have a little convenience shop. But they didn't have a pathway to have Dollar General in because they never updated that comp plan. So it set them back. They had to go through, do their comp plan updates, and then allow Dollar General to come in, which can slow down the process. And ultimately that applicant could say, then I won't even be here because you guys are making me wait so long. So we want to avoid that. I'm sure you guys want to see growth, whether it be Dollar General or something else. But again, we just want to make sure that this is something that you're going back to and reviewing, as I've said throughout this whole presentation. It is something that you should be referencing when you get into those sticky situations of a variance or even a conditional use permit. Does it align with what our future goals are or not? Okay.
How often does the city of Arlington revise their comp plan?
So go ahead.
Go ahead. I mean, typically it's anywhere from 10, 15, 20 years. It really just depends. Like ours was last updated in 2014, so I would say that it's due for, at least, I think it should be reviewed probably more frequent, just to understand that if the city has different goals than what's outlined in there, then it should be updated. But I think typical is 10, 15, maybe more frequent.
Yeah.
Depends how aggressive you want to be in with change, or if you're happy with what it says, then it doesn't need to be amended.
The other thing too that I will say, and again, we'll jump a little bit more into it as I have your guys' comprehensive plan in front of me, and I've done my own little color coordinated notes, but you want to make sure that when you are making goals, we want to make sure everybody's lawn looks pretty by 5 p.m. every night. Like, we're not being very specific. It's more generalized of, we'd like to see our town look uniformed, right? Like, that's very broad. It's not like about someone's specific lawn or what they look like. But then of course there's like noxious weed ordinance. So then like you can kind of pull that in and say, hey, this aligns with our comp plan of wanting our town to like organized and put together. And we also have an ordinance that requires people to not have, messy lawns. And so then you can enforce that by utilizing both of those resources to kind of solidify why are you going after this individual for having a messy lawn or weeds or junk, like vehicles out on their property. So. Okay. And then, really quickly, we're going to discuss a parliamentary procedure. Again, this is what we did at the beginning of the meeting. We called it to order. We made sure that there is a quorum here. So if we needed to make a decision, what is your guys' council at 5?
Our council is 5.
Okay, so then 3 out of the 5 would need to be present.
Here is more though.
7.
Yeah, we have 7 on our planning.
7 on planning, so then you would need to have 4
Yeah.
here in order for there to be quorum. And what that basically means is if there is not majority here, you can have your meeting, that's totally fine. You just can't make recommendations, you can't vote on anything because quorum is not present. Okay, and then once you,
I've always wondered, what's the point of having your meeting then if you can't? So, because we've had it before where we've had a public hearing and then we didn't have quorum, so we just didn't hold a meeting.
I think
you don't have to hold a meeting if you don't want to, but
I think if it was a meeting like tonight where you were coming to give a training and only 3 people showed
Yes,
up,
we would
then
still
I think,
hold it.
yeah,
but
then I think
if your
that would be
whole
a
agenda
little-
was decision
Yeah,
making,
right. Then there's. doesn't
but
feel
you
like there's
wouldn't be
points.
able to like approve your agenda, you wouldn't be
Right.
able to approve the previous minutes. And so then it's really just me coming in and giving the training and leading is all that meeting would essentially be. Yep, and then we just went over agenda items. I'm one of your agenda items. And then if you have any announcements that you want to state during your business meeting, you can during that time. It's not really a discussion. It's more or less of like, hey, we have this celebration going on and we want to invite everyone to attend. Awesome. All right, now we are going to adjourn and it is whatever time it is, 7:52, and we're done. I'm just kidding. I don't know what time it is. I'm just making that up. And then your meeting would then close. Hopefully I'm not talking that long. Okay, and then this is just more or less just going into how do you make a motion. As we saw earlier, I moved to X, Y, and Z. I second, or I know people say so be it as well. So move, I've heard. So if you wanted to second that motion, if you want to withdraw a motion that you gave before it has been repeated, that's fine. After it's been repeated, it may be withdrawn if nobody objects. And then, of course, you can always amend a motion. So, as input is being received and you're making a motion and then somebody says, well, wait, actually, I would like to make a motion to approve the 8 to 5 hours of business. And somebody says, well, they've actually been running 7 to 7 and that's what they're here for. Whoops, sorry, I forgot that. Let me make that amendment to my motion. I move that they can have their operations from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So it's just simply ending what you stated. You can still have a meeting even if the chair is not present. Somebody else would then just have to fill in, but again, you still have to have quorum. So it's just your designated person if you have that.
Do you have vice chair? Are you still vice chair?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we always have a vice chair in the event that our chair is gone. And I will just mention, if you have any reservations over Robert's Rule, there's some really short, really good YouTube videos that make it super easy to learn.
And I'm sure Jess can provide those for you.
Yeah, if you want me to, just Google Robert's Rule and it'll come up.
Okay. And then these are the resources that are utilized while putting this guide together to discuss with you guys today. Does anybody have any additional questions?
I guess you mentioned annexation, so I just have to ask.
Yeah.
Have you guys had all this that a lot to expand city limits and everything like that?
Do you mean like as a whole or
Does
just
the
like
planning
one
and
parcel?
zoning Initiate that, like.
Usually
or to
from,
give a motion to the city council, of course, but they. Is that something that that happens a lot or something like the planning. and
A lot of the
zoning?
time that I've been involved with like any type of annexation has been, I specifically work out in the townships. So most of the time it's they have this orderly annexation agreement between the city of Mankato and then some surrounding jurisdictions. So if you're familiar, there's Lime Township that's just north of the city of Mankato off of 3rd Avenue.
Okay.
And then near the Mankato Regional Airport, that's like the Lime Township. So sometimes people might want to annex into the city because they want their house hooked up to city utilities, or like the airport is the city of Mankato's, so they ran lines out that way. So there's potential for somebody to hook up to their utilities. Sometimes it's like it's more expensive for me to put in a new septic and well, so I might as well just hook up to the city, right? Like, and then have those amenities. I have also seen that the Mankato Township, it is to the east and south of the city, and so is and then Eagle Lake is also there.
Yep.
So they have that orderly annexation between Eagle Lake, Mankato Township, and the city, and then of course Lime and the city have like their own. And so that's the only time that I've seen it come into play per se. And I usually get to pass that right along to the city planners and say, "Good luck, I'm out of here." So that's really truly been my experience with it. I wish I had a little bit more to give you, but I'm sure I could do some research if you guys have additional questions.
Well, we did have an orderly annexation agreement with a township, and I think it expired, so that would be something if you're interested in. we could
Renewing the
maybe-
contract
Yeah.
and reviewing it. And if you guys wanted language to see, well, what does the city of Mankato's look like? I'd be happy to do that research for you guys too.
I
So
always thought it interesting, we have the park down.
I think about that every
Oh,
day.
yonder, and
Yes.
it's like, my.
Yeah, it's in the county, and we don't even serve the electric to it. Yeah. It is interesting. Maybe someday.
Yeah.
So anybody can initiate a request to move the city limits or no,
are you speaking as a whole or per parcel?
per parcel?
Well, yeah, so like the owner could come in and say like, "Hey, am I close enough to city limits?" I mean, there's been a time where like they are like 4 parcels in and we just don't have city line out there. So then we tell them, "Hey, yes, you can annex in. You're going to have to pay for, them cutting up that area." And usually it gets very costly. People say, "Time out, I'm out." So, mhm. But you can inquire on your own property if you're outside of city limits. Absolutely.
And I think we do have some area around town that would make sense to annex it, because we serve the electric and some
But the
other.
bank owns it and they won't let
Yeah.
it go. It's that simple.
Pretty much.
Potentially in the future.
Kind of sure on that.
Yeah.
Right. Great interaction. Thank you guys.
So we're done?
This one we're done with. I got one
got
more
one
for
more.
you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, can you hang in there a little bit longer?
Yes.
Does anybody need to stretch and get up and move around? Last time I brought candy, what was I thinking? I didn't bring it again.
That's what I keep.
You're out.
Yeah, I know. Where's the Jolly Ranchers at? Am I right?
No candy?
You're out of here.
We have to settle for supper, Colleen.
You have to settle for some music. I brought the beats in the background there.
Is that tomorrow night or Saturday? I haven't gone for Saturday.
Friday, Saturday.
It's both nights.
Oh,
Saturday is sold
yeah.
Oh, it's sold out. Wow.
out. When I looked this morning and I scanned
Yeah.
that thing, Saturday is sold out. Tickets are $42. Yeah, I'm staying home.
Oh, you're not gonna go.
I didn't even know about it in my life. Oh, yeah, by the way.
I'm paying $84.
Oh, that's closer too, yeah.
Oh, I think I gotta hook up to your guys'
Yeah.
internet in order to open up
I
that.
can turn the
Keep it
jukebox
going.
up and party in the garage.
Yeah, it won't let me open it until
I mean, we can just, everyone has their copy,
Yeah.
so
that's
I
great.
think we're okay.
Sounds
I
good.
don't know what's going on with you, Vera, today. And you know what? They might be sucking all the Wi-Fi, to be honest. I don't know what they're doing over there.
Okay.
They're on the guest network too.
I'll just try to disconnect and reconnect, but it's fine if not, like you said, we have. Okay, so I have your guys' comprehensive plan in front of me. We're gonna be going over what a comprehensive plan is. How do you go about updating a comprehensive plan? What does that process look like? How can we as the COG serve you in that, as you guys are members of our program? And then lastly, we'll go over, what does that, membership include, and then what is at additional cost, okay? All right, so updating a comprehensive plan. As you can see here, we do not have a cover letter or a cover page. Does that bother any of you?
Yes.
It bothers me. I don't know. It's just my type A personality. I'm like, I want to see it look pretty. And so I don't see that. So
made
that's,
one kind of.
yeah.
Yeah, Gwen made one in like 2 minutes.
Yeah. So, as you can see on the slide number 2 there, this is the city of New Ulms. It's really pretty. They have a picture of their city on it. It's more modern. I'm definitely a modern girl. I just like to see things updated and put together and look organized and uniformed as well. So that is definitely something that we would want to do as part of updating. That's very easy. Really what a comprehensive plan is, just long-term planning, as I previously stated. It's describing what is the vision for your community. What would you guys like to see it be? What does the town want it to be? It's establishing those goals and policies and strategies to get you from point A over to point Z. It's land use and zoning. So again, as we previously said with that map, how do we update and expand? Where are we looking to grow? Does it still align with what we want our future to look like in 10, 20, even 30, 40 years out? Can our infrastructure handle that, right? Does the utilities even extend that far out? If not, how do we start planning to ensure that if we did want to expand to the north, that we have utilities running out that way? Is there transportation out that way? Does it make sense? Is our city walkable? Do people walk around town? Do they like to have, parks and recs? Like, are we planning and thinking about those things as we're trying to extend to the north, south, east, or west? And then the process of updating your comprehensive plan, it's preparation, okay? It's, hey, let's not only look at it, but let's actually read this. What does this thing say? What were the goals, back in 2014? Does it still align with what we want now? It's receiving public engagement, and I'll go into each of these categories a little more, but like public engagement as far as sending out a survey to your community to see, like, not only does, it's Brandon, dang it, I messed up. Does Brandon want to see an ice cream shop here? Well, does the rest of the town want to see that, right? Like, what do we want to see, and does that align with everyone else within the community? There's some planning elements that I see that you guys already have, which is awesome. Your guys' comp plan's actually very extensive and really nice from other ones that I've assisted with, so good job. And then, of course, it's drafting up a plan. If you guys want to make those revisions, I can help redline some of them and then go into discussion. Having an intergovernmental review, what the heck does that mean? Well, it's including your public schools, your businesses that are located within your hospital, things like that, right? Like people who have their stakeholders within your community. You want their feedback, their input. It's a two-way conversation, not we're doing this and that we don't care what anybody else has to say. And then, of course, having a public hearing about everything that we've discussed, the participation that we've received from the intergovernmental review and from the public in general, and then letting them know this is what we've drafted up based off what you guys are telling us and our stakeholders. And then, of course, if everything goes smooth and great, then it's adopting it and then it's implementing it. So, and part of the implementation is, does our ordinances align with this, review? An example is one of my other jurisdictions. They wanted to annex in a piece of land, and their zoning designation for when you annex in, it just doesn't hang out in no man's land. It is actually, there's a transition of it automatically being zoned ag, but they didn't have that reflected in their ordinance. The ordinance said something else, so those two documents are now contradicting each other. So we want to bring those all into alignment, and that's just part of the implementation of, hey, we approve this, and we got to make sure does everything else match with what we're trying to do. Okay. And then all of the rest of the slides just go into basically what I already said, but preparation, right? We're assessing what it currently says, going through all of the different categories. Definitely take some time to read through your comp plan. Public engagement, that includes open houses. So you guys can have some little writing boards of your guys's land use, housing, transportation, utilities, and come up with 3 questions for each of those categories of what is that input that you want from the community, right? And even just leaving it open-ended, like what would you guys like to see more in housing? You know, what's your demographic? Do you tend to have an age group of 30-year-olds? A majority of your town is made up of 30-year-olds. Well, they probably have children, right? So we need to plan for, family housing and not so much of, apartments or family housing, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you have a big stock in apartments and hardly any single families, well, then maybe you might see some of that population move to another town that has single family dwelling structures. So, it's just kind of leaving some of those categories open. Utilities, parks and rec, right? Hey, we got a lot of 30-year-old families here. Do we have enough space for our kids to go and play? So, again, it's the public's they're gonna tell you what they want to see. They're gonna tell you, hey, this park at, I don't know, Lincoln Park. I'm just making that up. I have no idea if you guys have a Lincoln Park. It's amazing, but we'd like to see some, pickleball courts. I know those are really big right now. Can we have pickleball courts and whatnot? So, and then of course surveys. How do we get surveys out? Not everybody has a smartphone. Maybe you guys have a large population of 65 plus year olds, and my grandma knows how to work a smartphone. Not everybody's grandma does. And so how do we get our survey out for people to engage, right? And so it could be simply sending out a survey out in your water bill or your electricity bills. So you could do a mailer. You could have it posted right up front for somebody, when they come and pay their bill with Gwen. Yes, let's go. I'm learning these people. Come on. It's having them come in and saying, oh, there's a survey. I would love to take that. And, sometimes you're going to get feedback. It's, not applicable. That's fine. But at least that person took the time to give some input. And that's what we really appreciate. If you guys have social media, Instagram, Facebook, X, whatever that may look like, just pushing that out to get people's feedback in. And then of course you'll have workshops. Those workshops can include subcommittees. So you can have somebody that's like, I'm very passionate about historical societies and I want to make sure you guys don't mess up our downtown. So I'm going to start, right? So it's like, great, that's awesome. Love that for you. We're going to set up a subcommittee for that. And we'd love to have you be a part of this comprehensive plan and how we can ensure that, we're not destroying history as we update or put new, I don't know, Dairy Queen in the old bank that's located in downtown. Okay. And then some of those planning elements, as I previously said, land use, housing, transportation, utilities, parks and open space, economic development, environmental protections, which are going to be those environmentally sensitive areas that you may have, and then implementing strategies. And then we're going to move into drafting the plan. So now that we've received all this input, how do we put this in this book? I see a lot of outdated little note or ask, these little sticky notes and little, I don't even know, is that a ship turning steering wheel? That's cool. Love that for a land use plan, but let's update those graphics, right? Let's modernize it. Let's put it together. Let's make it look pretty, and let's have the public excited about updating and seeing what the future of the city of Arlington looks like. And so we'll go ahead and draft that up. And then again, once we have some type of a draft that looks pretty and ready to present, we'll then meet with, the school board, colleges that are nearby, hospitals, maybe townships that you still want to partner with, a utility commission if you guys have one, a parks and rec commission. Put them all together in one big room and talk about your comp plan. Send your Parks and Rec Commission their section and say, do you have any input on what our goals are? Would you guys like to see something different? Are we moving in the direction where you guys see fit? This is where we would like to be, right? We see that our demographic information came back and we have a high population of families. Let's play on that a little bit more. Okay. And then of course, a public hearing is required. You can't just say, well, we already got the public's input, so now we're going to approve it. Nope, we still have to have a public hearing that is presenting the draft. And during that, off to the left, it just simply states the state statute and what the requirements are prior to adoption. So, making sure that you're having goals and objectives for agricultural land, forest, wildlife, and open space land. You want to minimize the development and sensitive shoreland areas, which I don't see any. Well, maybe there's like a little pond out that way. But anyways, we just want to make sure that we're not destroying some sensitive areas. And then within 3 years of updating, as I said in my previous example, you want to make sure that you're adopting ordinances as part as what you've amended and making sure they're aligning. So you got 3 years to do that. I recommend that you don't do that. You should read through your ordinance as well, and you're updating as you go. So, and then of course, just the hearing taking place at the Planning Commission. I didn't see in your charter if it specifies who would you like to go through all these drafts and have all these work sessions with. Do you want council to do that? Do you want the Planning Commission to do that? That's up to council to decide. If you guys are like, no way, this is our baby, we want to see it from the beginning all the way to the end, great, you can definitely do that. Or you can have your Planning Commission. That is what they are there for, to assist and provide recommendations to you guys. That doesn't mean that two of you cannot be representatives on the Planning Commission or be a part of it still and then present back. Or you could definitely request, hey, if you guys are having meetings and discussing the comp plan, even it's simply just changing the Times New Roman instead of Calibri, whatever it may be, that you want to be a part of those updates. You can definitely have somebody coming and reporting. Completely up to you guys and how you guys would like to see that structure of it being updated. It's definitely up to you guys. And by you guys, I mean the council. Okay. And then, of course, adoption, it requires a resolution. Comprehensive plans are actually not a requirement outside of a certain area within the state of Minnesota, but comprehensive plans are so helpful in those examples that I stated earlier of a conditional use permit or a variance. It provides you this guidance of, hey, can we do this or not? And if you really don't want to do that, you actually have some legal standing to say, no, we do not want to put a Dairy Queen in the old bank because we love the old bank and you're going to ruin it or whatever the case may be. I don't know. Okay. Yep. And then implementation, of course, you're going to update your CIP zoning ordinances and then share that with the community. And then you can either post it on your city website, like, hey, our comprehensive plan, not only is it amazing and updated, it looks really pretty, but now we have a link on our city website that you can access and read through as a public. You don't have to come in and see a paper copy. I don't know if you guys have it online or not, but just making it accessible to your public. And then notifying the public where they can find it. If you say, hey, yeah, we're not putting that on the city website, but we have a physical copy at the city hall, awesome. Just make sure you're communicating that with your community. And then, yay, we did it. Job well done. We knocked it out. It's probably going to take a year, but we are going to work through it together. Okay, and then now this is where we're like, well, what is your role? What is mine? What do we see from the COG? We hired them, so what are they actually including in this membership? Well, we assist you guys along the way by doing the research, okay? We're the ones who are going through, reading through census information, which is just my favorite. Get a big cup of coffee and start reading through and updating. And then making sure that that's reflected in your guys' comprehensive plan. We also assist with surveys, setting up the questionnaire, guiding you guys through we want to ask people about parks. We don't really know what to ask them about. We can provide you guys some suggestions. Well, what is it? Having that back and forth conversation of what is it about the parks that you guys want to see? What do you want to update? What do you want to keep? Hey, we don't want to update too much and remove all of the history of Arlington, right? So just running through some of those scenarios, setting it up. We have an account with SurveyMonkey, so we can do like the online part of strategizing to send out all the information out to the public for you guys, collecting all of that data and then reflecting it back into your comp plan. We can definitely do that. The pretty cover page that I was talking about, of course, updating the graphics, but then your guys' responsibility would be coordinating, collaborating, building those subcommittees that I talked about, communicating with your community, asking for their input, hosting those open houses. You guys are connecting with them, asking those questions, writing down the whiteboard stuff, and then sending it my way. participating, what you put in is what you will get out. So if you say, well, we kind of threw it together last minute and hope for the best, and only 5 people showed up, and now we have some input, but I guess we'll just do what we said. Well, no, like we want to make sure that we're being organized and, facilitating some time and a space for the community to come in, whether that's hosting one open house, which is the statute requirement, or being like, hey, we really want to hear what the public has to say, so we're going to host 3 just to make sure that we get everybody's input that we possibly can. So that would be up to you guys. And then at an additional cost, we have in the past helped other communities and jurisdictions that we serve to completely overhaul the entire comprehensive plan. So not only are we updating the graphics, but we're also updating the language and reflecting that it's formal, it's legally sounding as far as, hey, we can refer back to this whenever we have an issue in the future. We have additional staff at the city of Mankato that would also be reviewing this and ensuring that, hey, you guys didn't address, I didn't see in here that you guys had your land use plan that was embedded in here, or land use map. We don't see what the existing is and what the future development could potentially be. So if somebody wanted to annex in, they're not seeing that there's a potential that this area is going to be zoned ag, right? So there are some missing components in there that that we could always have, the city of Mankato pull their resources as well to see what's additional that we could add in here that would make this a little bit more sound. And then additionally, instead of you guys coordinating all of your meetings and your community input, we would be assisting you alongside of, setting those meetings up, what dates work ahead, and scheduling that, updating your city website to reflect that. And then, of course, just updating the language all throughout, and then graphics. So, okay. That is my spiel about updating. Thank you guys for hanging in there with me for, our planning commission training and this updating of a comprehensive plan. Does anybody have any questions?
I do not.
No?
You might, after you take a look at our comprehensive plan, I like Victoria said, I think it's a good base, it's a good start. It's got a lot of information in there, but it's gonna be up to you guys to take a review and start thinking about, are there items in there that we need to adjust or amend, or do we just need to fluff it up a little bit?
So if there is any questions, they should be emailed.
Yeah, you can email me.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Victoria.
Of course, I did want to point out too that if you guys want to take a look at the city of New Ulm's, theirs is more modernized and updated, and it's just a great. Like, you guys have a lot of information that's really resourceful and helpful in you guys making those decisions, but this is just a little bit more pulled together. There's some color coordination. It's just more modern and it looks more updated, and there's graphics that are included of their town. So, and then the maps too are just all embedded. So it presents a little bit differently. It's, easy read for your town to take a look at and review as well.
Okay, so theirs is still.
There's a
roughly
substantial
200 pages.
193.
However, their town is a lot larger than ours, so I don't necessarily think that ours needs to be 200 pages. Sometimes that's overwhelming, and then you don't even want to utilize the document, so.
No, but like, as you can see, like they even have like these little key insights versus like your guys's are like these little, like from the 90s little, what is that, art clip? Like
Yeah,
type of
clip
little,
art.
yeah, clip art. So anyways, but
Is
I
that
digress.
available online then?
yep, you can go to the city of New Ulm and then you can pull it up from there. So maybe you want it to look like that and reflect. That was just one of my favorites that I had seen. So
Is ours online?
Ours is online. It is. One thing too, Victoria, maybe it would be is it worth doing a survey before even considering digging too deeply into this to really understand like what are the community's wants? If they don't align with this, then yeah, we definitely need to do a deep dive. If they're pretty much on point, we can just do a general update.
yeah. So what you could do is I would recommend that you guys take a look at the categories of interest even to you, or maybe even heard like, at your kid's sports game, other people talking about, the parks could use a facelift or whatever the case may be. And then being like, hey, well, maybe we should focus on that on the survey. So you already know the categories of what you want to be reflected in that survey. And then we can definitely send that out and see if there's a need, or if you guys see a need to update it. Yep. Okay.
Anything else on that?
I think we knocked out 6 with that.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you, Victoria.
All right. Thank you
Yeah,
guys for
thank
your
you so
time.
much.
Thank you, Victoria.
Of course.
Moving on. Update from city council members. Anything? All right. Comments from planning and zoning members. Anything about tonight?
Is this something that we're gonna take home and read over?
Yeah, that's yours.
Yeah, by the
It's your
next
homework.
meeting, we want you to read that.
I won't present.
Memorize.
And I'm
I
gonna give you-
can't wait for that presentation.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'll make it.
I keep it on, I'm about halfway through it 6 months ago.
Really?
Yeah, so, and then I quit.
Thank you. Thank you, Victoria.
Oh, it's, you gotta understand what
Yeah.
you're reading.
If we really need to update it, I'm taking her word for it,
Oh,
because a lot of it in there to me is Greek.
Yes, I've read my share too.
I think it could use an update to where it's easier to digest
Easier
the
to
information. It's
understand.
very dry as presented.
Mhm.
And
Maybe we need more pictures.
more pictures would be good.
1990
Planning and zoning's
pictures
job
or
is-
2000 pictures.
It's easy. We make a recommendation to the council to update it. Now, whether they're gonna want it or not, because I don't think it's gonna be cheap. But how often should it be updated? It's
Well-
been 14?
14,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
got-
And I have no idea who wrote it, who put it together.
it's been 9 years.
You know, did our old administrator put it together?
No, they hired a firm, did it. I think it was that Cynthia, possibly. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think it's,
Oh, Strat.
it might be all the way in back.
Yeah.
Okay, there, my 2
And the
cents
COG
is
could
in.
help us with a light upgrade, which is included in our membership, so that's not your fee. It's when we go into the deep dive in community engagement. The survey, the adding pictures, cleaning up, this, I think we could get that done.
The survey, nobody's gonna answer.
You think so?
What's our town?
This town is.
What's our town's called, about 2,200 something? You'll be lucky to get 300 answers.
Oh, that's.
If.
That's not bad.
That's. a
How many did they
high-
get for the hotel study? That
I think
was
we got
around
about
that much.
300, and that's
Yeah.
actually a really good response.
You know,
I
I think
know,
it's a
but you-
crap
Well,
response,
when you
it
think
should
about
be
kids,
half.
your whole family isn't gonna reply, your kids aren't gonna reply.
No, that's
Per
true.
household, do you think that's, yeah.
300,
I
okay,
didn't
so
do
how
the
many
survey.
households do we have in Arlington? 850? 900?
I know meter count, like.
About that.
What's our meter count?
About 1,300,
You know, there's a bunch of
yeah,
cheap asses like me that have an outdoor meter.
yeah, right, that's double, and then
Yeah.
businesses, I don't know,
Anyway,
any engagement is better.
it
than
needs to
no
be done, it needs to be done.
I'll admit, I don't
But
open
this
my bill
thing
from the
can
city.
change. in
It's
5
auto pay
years.
and I
Yeah,
don't
no.
even open it up, so if there's stuff in there that I need to reply to.
Can I plug something in at your house?
Right now, we're at max capacity.
Max out right now.
Yeah. We don't have,
checker banks.
we don't have any open outlets right now.
Did you hear the buzzing when you go by?
I have this great equipment.
Okay.
So I need to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Christina made a motion to adjourn the meeting, Brandon second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next meeting, December 18th at 6 o'clock.
Thank you all for attending tonight, it's long, but it's a good refresher, and for those of you who are new, it's good.
Will we have a meeting December 18th? If there's
To be
nothing,
to be determined, that's also
Yeah.
right before Christmas, so. If you don't see an email, we're not having an email, or if having a meeting, if you do see an email, we are.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Good seeing you all.
Thanks, Chairman Jim.